Pretty excited. On Patrick and the People, we like to promote local individuals who are doing great things. And I'm joined here with Derek Smith. He's the founder and president of Arkansas Weather Watchers, as well as Cameron Barnes, the vice president, producer, and chief forecaster, if I am correct. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Can say it better myself.
All right, man. I'm so excited to have you on because it's really a new phenomena, having a unique and separate weather entity that operates outside of the news system. And what made you guys decide to go into that?
So I was gonna say, Derek, you want to go
So,
ahead?
how this started was back in 2014
Hmm.
when we had the Mayflower, all the Bologna, all that stuff,
Yes.
which was
But
a
I was gonna say,
ironically supercharged pattern that we just got through dealing with.
Right.
And the number one story was whenever we talked to people or whenever I went around and talked to people, they were like, we had no warning because, by that point, it had gone through, areas of Chenal, Ferndale,
Hmm.
places like that. So your TV towers had already been taken out. So they had no way to get that proper warning. And the common phrase that was always said was, I wish I had another way to to receive weather because I don't watch TV. I don't have time to sit down and stop. I'm always on the go.
Yeah.
And back in 2014, obviously Facebook was still kind of getting into the new live
yeah,
stream era.
I
That's
was gonna
right.
say you were like right before the cusp of like
Yeah.
modern
You you you,
technology
you
now, and
you
it,
were on the cutting
yeah,
edge. Yeah. You're right there with
yeah,
me out
and
there. Yeah.
Derek, the funny thing about that is, um, yeah, we kind of got this together in 2014, but I've known you like personally, I think 2012,
Yep.
because we had it was called the Weather Mafia group, and all of us together was just kind of like, talking about the weather and just kind
Hmm.
of, your weather enthusiasts, just kind of talking about what's going on, and that's kind of how we met. So yeah,
Yep.
AWW started in 2014, but I've known you, I think, an
Long
extra
before
two,
that.
long before that.
So
So
I'm guessing that both of you have had a long-term interest in weather since you were young. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah.
yes,
Now,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
what
So
what were either
mine,
of you motivated by a particular event?
yes. So mine was actually the March of '97 event. Many Arkansans remember that. It was they like places like College Station, downtown got hit,
Hmm.
places like that. At that time, I lived with my grandparents over on Woodrow. So we saw the war cloud, we saw all the debris, and they're like, Derek, get inside, get inside. I'm like, no, look.
Right.
And then in
Right.
January of '99, it happened again. And I'm like, I have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. January of '99 was the EF5 that hit. Well, it hit a large swath, but it was about a mile wide, and out Arch Street area, which is where I lived at the time. Of course, they ended up declaring martial law because to stop looting. But military, anything else, I've never seen destruction like that. I saw houses
Hmm.
upside down, vehicles in trees. I mean, it looked like a bomb went off there. It was crazy, man. So do you focus more on just the forecast side? Do you go out? How do you put everything together? Is it more technological? Are you in the field more? Do you chase? What all do you do?
So
That's all him.
So I'll just kind of give you like a breakdown of it. So we kind of do like a combination of everything, pretty much. We just now, recently got, Jamie. She's our storm chaser. We recently just got her back out in the field and everything. And we have people on behind the scenes that do the forecasts pretty much throughout a day by day process. We have a group that we sit down, we just kind of look at data and kind of look at what's coming up and everything like that. To add on, so you guys talking about, the March, what was it, the 99,
Yeah,
Hmm.
the 99 event, January or March, which one was it?
January '99.
January
Yep.
yeah,
99. Okay. So, one of the reasons why I partnered up with Derek is because not only that, but I grew up in El Dorado in South Arkansas. And, all your news stations cover Little Rock, they cover Central Arkansas and
right.
all that. Once you get south of, I'd say 270, all that coverage goes away. I mean, you
Okay.
are kind
Hmm.
of in that that gray zone down there.
That no
where it's
man's
like,
land.
that no man's land. Like you're at the mercy of the sky down there because it's like you either get it from one station or the other, and if both stations are covering their respective metropolitan area and something happens down there, I mean, you're just at the mercy down there.
So
So that's kind of another reason why we decided to do it too, is because not only to help, promote more severe weather awareness, but to also help out the smaller towns too that don't get, the mainstream coverage.
Kind of a
and
coverage
like
desert,
that.
if you will, in that area. So
Correct.
you're
Yep.
filling that
Yeah.
need
Correct.
that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fantastic
Yes, sir.
because I think that it's long been said that moments save lives when it comes to these kind of storms, right?
Mhm.
How do you when you're looking at these storms that are coming in? Let's say the one that recently happened, we had a lot of rain and flooding and whatnot. How do you know when you're looking at it, man, I need to err on the side of caution? How do you find that fine line between, oh my God, and here's what's going on,
So that is, since I can take this one, or you got
You
it?
are on it.
Yeah. So
Because while I was camping, you were dealing with the outbreak city. So with this one,
all right. So to kind of break down how how we kind of see that stuff coming is we look at model data pretty much 24/7. Now I'm gonna tell you something. You live by the models, you die by the models. That's just how it is. That's how you
Sure.
work with any kind of data. So it also boils down to pattern recognition because it's not just in today's age everything's about technology and data and everything. Well, you've got two guys that have been born and raised here in Arkansas that have seen every single event. Your 97, your 99,
Yeah.
your 2011, your 2014. It's about pattern recognition.
Right.
And some storms that you can see coming, you use that previous experience. You're like, hey, this is awfully familiar to what happened back then. Might want to err on the side of caution, like, hey, let these guys know what's going on. Every two systems are different in their own way, but there are certain systems, kind of like how it was, I'll give you an example. March 14th this year, 2025, tornado outbreak in Northeast Arkansas. Then we had the event last Wednesday, that looked awfully familiar to said outbreak. So you use that experience from covering said outbreak, and you're like, okay, hey,
Yeah, it could
it's
produce.
not going to hit the exact same town or exact same city and stuff like that, but you recognize that pattern. You're like, okay, hey, this is what's getting ready to happen here. This is your setup, and everybody needs to be aware. So that's kind of how we do things here.
Okay.
We'll sit down and 24/7. We'll look at data, and then before we see a big event coming on the planner, we're like, hey, who has experience with this pattern? Who has seen this
Right.
pattern before in the past? And then we go from there.
I don't know. I don't have the knowledge nor education that you guys do, but I have lived here most of my life and followed most of the storms that have hit. One thing that at least anecdotally I feel like I've observed, and I'd love to hear your input on it, but I know from the time I was young until about a decade ago, man, if a tornado was going to hit in Arkansas, you could bet Saline County was going to get burned. That was every single time, man. Every time, okay? I don't care which direction, Saline County would get hit, But it seems like over the past decade that the line moved north some and it started bypassing us more and hitting more the Valonia area, the Conway area, and like that. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah. So I was gonna say,
All
Derek,
pattern.
yeah.
Yeah, so it really just depends on like pattern shift because you go through periods in meteorology of pattern shifts, and geography changes and stuff like that. Arkansas toward Tornado Alley has always been at the base of the Ouachitas, base of the Ozarks, kind of right where at the foothills, Saline County, Garvin County, Arkadelphia, I-30, 67, 167, up into north
That
Arkansas.
I-40, I-30.
Right.
That's what it is.
But
Yeah.
over time, what has happened is your Gulf is always a little bit warmer, so those fronts are able to come a little bit further north, and therefore that creates more what we call a capping inversion. And so wherever that cap breaks is where your storm forms, and
Okay.
it gets into a better environment.
Right, right. So
And
it's
to
breaking a
add to
little
that,
further north is what you're saying, and thus
correct,
far,
correct,
or because of that
correct, because
warmer.
every year, because how we get our severe weather here in Arkansas is, it's the Gulf, and all your moisture, your warm air comes from the Gulf, and
Which Gulf were you
we've
speaking
noticed
of?
over the
Was that the Gulf of America, or I never mind. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Yes.
guys. I apologize. I
I knew,
didn't.
I knew it was going there. I knew it was going there.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just having a
Goodness
little fun.
gracious.
Go ahead,
But
man.
but anyways, so when we have that set up like that, I've noticed, over the last couple of years that it's been warming up more, and
Yep.
then I've noticed the north, and I'll be honest with you, Northeast Arkansas has been taking a hit. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I'm saying.
obviously,
Yeah,
Central Arkansas, there was a period where it was always Little Rock, it was always Conway, Mayflower, Hot
yeah,
Springs. These last couple of years, it's always been Northeast Arkansas, and
Yep.
yeah.
it's been weird to kind of see that.
Well, that's it's
So,
been weird to me
geography,
because
yeah.
I spent half of every season in a some kind of shelter somewhere growing up, and so
Right.
now I'm
Hmm.
watching people in other counties who are ducking and dodging, and I'm like, wow. I mean, not that I'm not happy not to, but I hate it for them too. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I'm like, I appreciate the
Exactly.
reprieve, but let me ask you this. Twister, you love the movie. Everybody does. Who
Love it.
doesn't love it? But
Absolutely love it.
but it
I
is
watch it every night before a severe event.
right. Is the most unbelievable scene the one where their belt tied to the pipe?
Yes, yes,
Because I'm pretty sure
yeah.
that just
I've
rip
I've
them
had
right
so
off.
many questions about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we do not recommend people doing that.
If you can't tie down to
Yeah.
a pipe
Yeah.
and get sucked up, you will be sucked up with it.
Yeah. You
A
go up
belt
with
is
pull
not
the
strong enough
pipe.
to hold you.
No, that's fantastic. I love the movie. Just like Armageddon, there's not a lick of science that's any good in it. But
No.
but I love the movie.
You
Especially a
know,
pipe that's only like what a couple dozen feet in the ground.
yep.
Yeah.
Hey Patrick, because one thing you mentioned, was why we're able to do what we're doing,
Hmm.
considering differently from what, say, Sinclair and Nexstar, like your other
Right.
media outlets. Not take away, from like our Channel 4s, 11, 7, stuff like
Sure.
that, but here at AWW Media Group, what we're able to do is we don't have that overhead. We don't have all the political
Right.
stuff.
Right. You're
So
just
we can
focused
call
on
it
the
how we see it.
weather. You're calling
Yeah,
balls
Yeah.
and
and
strikes.
I've also, we have friends that are in said media groups, your
Yeah.
Sinclairs and stuff like that, and I've always heard that there's always a limit because you have your markets and stuff like that, and it's not just here in Arkansas. That's
Yeah.
like your Alabamas, your Mississippis, and stuff like that. It's like they have a market of there are certain counties that they cover, and that's just how it is. And then once you
Hmm.
get out of said market, you switch powers over to another channel, or you switch
Sure.
powers over to somebody else, and if they can't cover it, there's no coverage, and it's not on the person that's covering the weather. It's just
It's
Hmm.
just
that's
where the
how it
weather
is. It's
coverage
just like a
reaches.
company.
Yeah, it's
They're
just where it
locked.
reaches. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
certain
no, it's
regions of how everything is.
same with
So
radio. I mean, you only go so far. At some point, it starts breaking up, and it's no
correct,
different with
right?
TV. And, you may be picking up all of a sudden Tennessee news or Oklahoma news, whatever the
Yeah.
case
Right,
may be, and not
right,
be
and it's
specific.
Which is why the advantage of us being social media, being stream based, your Roku, your Fire TV, really helps.
Well, it definitely made a difference in my family, and I'll tell you why. We really don't watch traditional broadcast television anymore. I mean, only maybe the Super Bowl or something like that, And normally I'm
Hmm.
going somewhere to do that.
right,
So
exactly.
right, and I got the stupid antenna, and I'm like, man, this is just, I remember that when I was a kid. I hated it then, I hate it now. It never works. As soon as you walk away, it's messed up again.
Yeah,
So having you guys on my
TVs and all that
Roku,
stuff.
yeah, having you guys on my Roku makes it easy, and I know that I'm going to get all of the state, not just part of it, and
Hmm.
that's good because I have friends and family in many different areas of the state. Man, this is fantastic. I'm so thankful that you guys took some time to talk to us about this. As you guys continue to grow and expand, what can we expect to see from you? What's the next frontier?
So really, our next big thing that we are starting on. So obviously, we just became an official media group this year. Something we have been working on for a few years now.
Yeah.
Obviously, our expansion to Apple TV is coming. Our expansion as well to having a weather camera network around the state. We're currently in talks, with a couple of different companies about that. I know several different outlets around the state. I know a couple are going to be going up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
El Dorado, I think, potentially Hamburg. Hopefully, our one in Silent Springs finally gets going. And then, our goal is to have a 75 county camera network around the state, mainly focusing on your smaller towns.
Right.
Because obviously, there's so much coverage in the metro.
Right.
So
Well,
outside
everybody's got a
Jonesboro.
camera in the metro, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Everybody's
You
got one
go
of those
outside.
devices.
Yeah.
You go outside of Jonesboro. You go outside of Little Rock. You go outside of Memphis. There's nothing.
Right.
And Fayetteville. I always forget those folks up there on the hill. Not intentionally.
Right. I
Okay.
get it.
But there's a lack of view around the state, especially in the Ouachitas, the Ozarks, and South Arkansas.
So this would give you
Our
not
goal is to
only
change that.
it would not only give you the radar and the other technology, as well as individuals who may be in the area, but a constant vigil of a camera that you can see, and look
Correct.
at physically, like out the window. No,
Correct.
I think
And,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and kind of add on to kind of echo on what Derek was talking about. Is those folks that are outside of those metropolitan areas. If let's say like we had something coming out of Louisiana and Northeast Texas. I grew up in El Dorado. I knew whenever we had something come out from, I'm trying to remember, it would be the Ruston area.
Hmm.
We would have something come out from there. It would always be a problem for us here in El Dorado and South Arkansas.
Right.
So, to have a camera down there will not only just give us, the visual of the sky and see what's coming, it also will help the National Weather Service. Because National Weather Service, they're the ones that, work tirelessly, put the watches out, put the warnings out,
Right.
give us the guidance that we need to help broadcast for the state of Arkansas. So, it would help them out too. And it'd be a situation where if on radar, they can't see rotation, but if our camera, let's say if it's like in Magnolia and you see this monster wedge coming out from Louisiana, well, they can slap a warning on it without having to go through radar and all that protocol. And in turn, you speed up that process of getting people in shelter. And then in return, you help save lives that way as well.
So it sounds like to me, and boy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you've carved out, and you're in the process of carving out a unique total state coverage, county by county, where that everyone is represented. You can quickly get and disseminate information visually, technologically, audibly, obviously, to those people and everyone in the surrounding areas. And it seems like if this continues to work, this could really be a great model to continue to expand. It seems like maybe.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And that's kind
the
of,
goal.
our thing is that, not only are we doing the camera project, we just brought on a pilot as well, who's going to be helping us assist in kind of aerial views,
Sure.
post damage.
I could just see though
So-
people like somewhere on our borders where that they don't have that coverage, just like we don't, and all of a sudden here are the weather watchers showing up and saying, yeah, we got Ruston, you know what I mean, or whatever it may
Right.
be.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
that's kind
that's
of what Cameron, like a 10-year plan, basically.
Yeah. So
to
the plan
umbrella.
is that eventually, because we had talked about this, in the last 2 to 3 years, we've had so many people, not only for just here in Arkansas, but your Louisiana, your Texas, your Louisiana, Texas, your Mississippi, your Oklahomas, your Tennessees. We've had people from surrounding states ask, like, hey, where do I find coverage like this?
Yep.
And there are some folks out there, outside of the state that do an amazing job
Sure.
with doing that. But our eventual goal is to have the Mid-South and the lock.
Yeah,
with,
I could
in a
see
situation where it was like,
we.
if something's coming from Texas or Oklahoma, we give those folks a heads up, and
Yeah,
then obviously we cover home in Arkansas, and then we're able to track it as it moves east, and
And
we
pass it
just
off.
and pass it off.
Right.
From there.
Let's say we're able to pass it off to one of our media outlets in Mississippi, Alabama,
right,
Tennessee. We're actually in talks with a group in Michigan right now who are wanting to come under our umbrella in the next couple of years.
right. That's
It's very neat to see because you're transitioning out of, like you said, your TV media
right. Your
into
traditional broadcast.
your streaming media.
Well, that's just where everything is now. To be honest with you,
Mhm.
the overwhelming majority of people I know, I mean, they just don't. Nobody needs a TV guide anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, if you got this,
Right.
you got this.
That's right.
I
So,
mean,
so I have one last question for you, and this is just a random, silly, dumb question. All right, but in all, I'm sure that being weather people, you spend copious amounts of time outdoors. You've probably been all over the state of Arkansas. I'd venture to say in most counties. I bet, probably in some areas that other people have never seen. Have you ever come across, or do you believe in Bigfoot?
in the what?
And Bigfoot. I'm gonna say yes. I think he's somewhere out there in the movies. I'm gonna say yes.
You're gonna say yes.
I'm
Okay.
gonna say yes to that one. I think he's somewhere out there in the Washita Mountains somewhere. We went out there in West Arkansas chasing,
All right.
and I could have sworn I heard
So-
some stuff in the woods, man.
Funny story.
Where was that one?
Yeah,
I know where you're getting at.
Hold on. When I was a teenager, I got stuck. My truck broke down
Okay.
up in northern Searcy County.
Oh,
Okay.
that's-
In the
that
middle
would
of
be-
nowhere.
This is gonna be fun.
I could have sworn I saw Bigfoot.
Yeah. It could have
Never
been.
know.
We were out chasing one time out there in West Arkansas, and man, I swear, no data, nothing. I told him, we went outside and looked. I was like, man, you hear that rustling out there? Like, we need to go.
Well, we have a guy that he comes in. He's a guest on our show regularly from a podcast called Drunken Cryptids, and
Man.
yeah, and
They
those
follow us.
yeah,
I recognize that
Yeah,
name.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I recognize that name. Yeah.
and he's an enthusiast. He goes all over the country. He speaks. He does things like that. So I always have to ask anytime I'm around people who are outdoors on his behalf, just to see if you what your take might be. So I can tell him, no, they ain't seen one. No, I'm kidding.
It gets a little hairy out there in the woods, out there in Washington.
But that could just be a meth head. Did I say? I'm sorry, man. I apologize. That's wrong of me. Guys, listen, I want to thank you very much for coming on. Listen, I know you're both very busy. You got a lot going on. Goodness, I'm sure you have more than enough on your plate. But if periodically we could check in and touch base with you and have you back on as a guest, I think that'd be awesome. And if ever we can get you in here to the studio, it'd be even better.
Absolutely.
beautiful.
I will tell you what, June, July, and August is the best time of year.
Yeah, it's
for that.
the deadest time for you. It's just hot. Everybody knows that's all it is hot.
Yeah,
That's
everybody
it.
knows it. And
Yep.
I would love to do something in the future where, like, in the summer, once we get past, this spring has probably been one of the most active springs we've had probably the entire time we've been doing this. So I would love to have some sort of show to kind of like recap of what happened. Hopefully,
Mhm.
with us being early April, hopefully the worst is behind us. But
Yeah.
We still got the rest of the month of May to get through.
That's very true.
Beware May.
Summer. Right.
Well, you know what I'm going to start doing here? I don't have a network affiliation. It never made sense for me here streaming, but you know what I am? From now on, I'm going to use Arkansas Weather Watchers as our weather source. So if I talk about weather, I'm just going to cite you guys as our source. How's that sound?
That
No,
sounds amazing.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you guys and look forward to seeing you again. All right.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, yes, sir.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All right, man. That was a great conversation with those guys, man.
Man, that was.